Hello, and welcome back to Civilization Education. Last time we left off with Thrasymachus trying to storm off after what he believed to be a mic drop moment, calling Socrates a child and comparing true rulers to shepherds and cowherds. Now, let us get back into this. After Thrasymachus is prevented from leaving, Socrates rebukes him, saying, "Do you suppose you are trying to determine a small matter and not a course of life on the basis of which each of us would have the most profitable existence?" Socrates then goes on to appeal to what really interests Thrasymachus, saying, "But my good man, make an effort to show it to us. It wouldn't be a bad investment for you to do a good deed for so many as we are," alluding to the fact that if Thrasymachus can prove Socrates wrong, he'll gain many students, and therefore money. As per usual, before Socrates tries to refute what was laid before him, he asks clarifying questions. He points out that after defining the true doctor, Thrasymachus doesn't hold the same standard for the shepherd, instead likening him to be a guest prepared for a good meal or a merchant looking to make a profit. Because of this, he reestablishes what a true shepherd would look like according to the standards set forth by Thrasymachus. And now Socrates must establish this new creation, the money-making art. Before he does that, though, he asks, "Do you think that the rulers in the cities, those who truly rule willingly?" Thrasymachus responds, "By Zeus, I don't think it. I know it. Don't you notice that no one wishes to rule voluntarily, but they demand wages, as though the benefit from ruling were not for them, but for those who are ruled? This clearly presupposes that it is not possible to do something both voluntarily and be paid for it. In fact, to do something without compensation is only the third definition of the word. If I chose to do a task at work which falls out of my normal scope of responsibilities, am I still not voluntarily completing the task, though I am paid for it?" Now, Socrates goes about establishing this new art he has created, first by reestablishing what he and Thrasymachus have already agreed to in relation to what the other arts and how they are distinct, then applying what has been established to money-making. "And what about this? Do you call the medical art the wage earner's art, even if a man practicing medicine should earn wages?" asks Socrates. "No." "And did we agree that the benefit of each art is particular?" "Let it be," Thrasymachus replied. "Then whatever benefit all craftsmen derive from receiving wages comes to them from their use of the wage earner's art in addition." Thrasymachus assents. "Then this benefit, getting wages, is for each not a result of his own art, but, if it must be considered precisely, the medical art produces health, and the wage earner's art wages. The house builder's art produces a house, and the wage earner's art, following upon it, wages, and so it is with all the others. Each accomplishes its own work and benefits that which it has been set over." Alan Bloom makes an excellent observation here. Quote, "This new art, however, contradicts the definition of the arts which has been the basis of the discussion. The wage earner's art is not concerned with the good of the art's object, but rather with the good of the practitioner. After all, the wage earner does not care for the well-being of money, he cares for his own well-being." End quote. So Socrates is able to prove, falsely given what Bloom put forth, via this new art, that all rulers not only rule for the benefit of others, but to do so unwillingly, for they must do it for wages, either for money, honor, or face a penalty should they not rule. But now there is a conflict between the two arts that doesn't get resolved. If the doctor is bribed, what should he do? Follow the art of being a doctor and heal the sick, or the art of the wage earner and take the money? Socrates acknowledges this by saying good men won't seek to rule because they don't wish for the money or honor that comes with it, so decent men must rule for money or honor to prevent the penalty of being ruled by tyrants. As I said, however, this tension doesn't get resolved, and the topic of discussion changes to whether it's more profitable to be just or unjust. Before Socrates refutes Thrasymachus, he asks how justice and injustice relate to vice and virtue. Thrasymachus calls justice, quote, high-minded innocence, and injustice, good counsel. With this, we, along with Thrasymachus, are taken on a very long and confusing roller coaster ride of questioning and reasoning. To be frank, I'm struggling a bit with this reasoning. No wonder Glaucon and Adeimantus are left unsatisfied at the conclusion of this discussion. Ultimately, the goal of Socrates is to take Thrasymachus' position and reverse it, as is his MO, to its conventional position, justice as virtue and injustice as vice. Socrates first gets Thrasymachus to agree that, quote, the just man does not get the better of what is like, but what is unlike, while the unjust man gets the better of the like and unlike, end quote. Next, Socrates puts forward that the unjust are prudent and good, while the just are the opposite. Thrasymachus concurs. Lastly, Socrates brings the discussion back to the arts. It is established that the musical man is prudent and good, while the unmusical man is thoughtless and bad. And like so many times before, the turning point in the discussion, the question that is asked and conceded without the respondent not knowing they've just lost their argument. Quote, then, you best of men, is any musical man who is tuning a lyre, in your opinion, willing to get the better of another musical man in tightening and relaxing the strings, or does he claim he deserves more? Quote, not in my opinion. As Alan Bloom points out, the central crux of the argument made by Thrasymachus is that everything is a competition, and he just admitted that's not the case. Now all Socrates does is go step by step, weaving this argument back together how it suits him. Socrates establishes that the same applies to the doctor that was just said of the musician, and again of knowledgeable and ignorant man. The man who knows is wise, says Socrates. I say so, replied Thrasymachus. And the wise man is good? I say so. Then the man who is both good and wise will not want to get the better of the like, but of the unlike and opposite, asked Socrates. It seems so. But the bad and unlearned will want to get the better of both like and the opposite? It looks like it. Then, Thrasymachus, does our unjust man get the better of both like and unlike? Weren't you saying that? I was. And the just man is like the wise and good, but the unjust man like the bad and unlearned? I'm afraid so. But we are also agreed that each is such as the one he is like? We were. Then the just man has revealed himself to us as good and wise, and the unjust man unlearned and bad. Remember, it is not clear this is the case. Socrates has made assertions based on presuppositions that were not cleared out beforehand, but were just agreed to by Thrasymachus. As Alan Bloom says, quote, the wise man, understood again by Socrates as the possessor of an art, does not seek to win out over the possessors of the same art. As a matter of fact, they are, as such, in fundamental harmony, accepting the same general rules, at one the same as each other. Mathematicians are all seeking the same result to the same problem, and as mathematicians, there is no competition among them. The just man is more like the wise man in this than the unjust man. Hence, justice is virtue, and injustice vice. Socrates has not proven himself right, but only that his opponent is a less skilled rhetorician than himself. With this concluded, Socrates wants to now discuss if injustice is mightier than justice. Thrasymachus pushes back, asking Socrates if he will let Thrasymachus give his thoughts or just wants him to nod along while Socrates poses questions. They bicker for a bit about which should happen and who is responsible for it. Thrasymachus says he'll just nod along to please Socrates. Socrates first argues that justice must be necessary because in a perfectly unjust city, pirates, army, tribe, or group of two men, or in one man's soul, these subjects wouldn't be able to accomplish anything, for injustice breeds factions, hatreds, and quarrels. Therefore, even among the unjust, there must be justice to achieve goals. Socrates then moves to consider if the just live better than the unjust. He begins with the idea that everything has its work that said thing fulfills. For example, the work of eyes is to see. You cannot see without eyes, so that is their particular work. same with ears, and a pruning knife. He then posits that everything that has work to do has virtue, for virtue is to do a thing well. Therefore, if your eyes are virtuous, they must see well. Likewise, if your eyes are not virtuous, they mustn't see well. Socrates supposes it is the same of the soul, and that living is the work of the soul. In order for the soul to do its work well, it must be virtuous. And if justice is virtue and injustice vice, then the just soul of the just man must by necessity live a good life, and the unjust soul of the unjust man the bad life. And if to live a good life is blessed and happy, whereas the unjust life is the opposite, and to be happy is profitable, the opposite unprofitable, it follows that the just man is more profitable than the unjust man. We have finally reached a conclusion of Book 1, and like Socrates, are left unsatisfied, as justice is still left undefined. However, not only is it left in such a state, but what we have learned was done so under specious circumstances. As I've said before, this work is not really concerned about trying to find the truth, but has already drawn its conclusions and is not concerned about a good faith dialogue with its opponents, but merely using rhetoric to shut them down. So by the end, the speaker, that being Plato, seems to have been proven correct simply by being the last one standing. Join me next month as we begin Book 2 with Glaucon and Adimantus.